กรณีอุ้มบุญเกิดคำถามมากมายในสังคมนะคะไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของศีลธรรมจริยธรรมเรื่องของกฎหมายช่องโหว่ที่จะนำไปสู่การค้ามนุษย์เรื่องนี้เป็นข่าวออกมาหลังจากที่มีกรณีคู่อุ้มบุญคู่สามีภรรยาชาวออสเตรเลียนำลูกอุ้มบุญฝาแฝดกลับไปเพียงคนเดียวนะคะอีกคนหนึ่งก็คือน้องแกมมี่ยังอยู่ที่ประเทศไทยทางออกขณะนี้จะเป็นอย่างไรเมื่อคสช.ระบุว่าต้องการที่จะทำให้กฎหมายห้ามการอุ้มบุญจะระบุว่าเรื่องนี้ต้องเป็นเรื่องผิดกฎหมายนะคะขณะที่ยังมีคู่สามีภรรยาชาวออสเตรเลียหลายๆคู่ร้องเรียนว่าต้องการที่จะนำลูกอุ้มบุญเดินทางกลับประเทศแต่ขณะนี้ก็ยังติดอยู่ในประเทศไทยนะคะแนวทางที่จะเกิดขึ้นและแนวทางที่จะแก้ปัญหาร่วมกันระหว่างไทยและออสเตรเลียวันนี้ดิฉันจะคุยกับเอกอัครราชทูตออสเตรเลียประจำประเทศไทยค่ะท่านทูตเจมส์ไวส์ค่ะสวัสดีค่ะท่านทูต Thank you for joining me for this program.
It's my pleasure.
So far, how many cases of Australian couples having surrogacy babies in Thailand and were held up in Thailand? Have you got reports about the figures?
Well, it's the numbers at the moment are that we have about 10 families with 14 children who are currently waiting to be able to leave Thailand.
So it means overall, how many Australian couples or how many babies are they waiting to be born out of surrogacy?
We can't be sure of the numbers. We estimate, and it's only an estimate, that there may be about 150 caught in this transitional period. And the reason we come to that number is that in the last year there have been about 200 cases. And 9 months is what it takes to have a baby, 3/4 of a year, so 3/4 of 200 is 150. That's as scientific as our estimate can be, because there's no requirement for the Australians to come and notify the embassy until such time as the baby is born, and they need to seek citizenship for the baby. So that they're not required to let us know until they want to establish the citizenship of the baby.
What's your major concern about these surrogate babies which are being held up in Thailand?
Well, our major concern is the welfare of the babies and the welfare of the commissioning Australian parents and the welfare of the birth mother, especially the babies, because we respect fully Thailand's decision to ban commercial surrogacy. Our challenge is how to deal with the people who are caught in this transition period. How do we make sure that the welfare of the baby, the welfare of the parents is not harmed? And that means we need some transitional arrangements to help them to be able to take their baby to Australia as was their initial intention.
You mentioned the term transitional agreements, the condition that you are trying to discuss with Thai authorities. So far, what's the progress?
Oh, we've had very good discussions with Thai authorities. The Thai authorities thoroughly agree that the first priority has to be the welfare of the children and the welfare of the parents, the birth mother, and the welfare of the people who are choosing to have the baby through surrogacy. The concern is that given the high profile that there has been around this issue, that somebody might get anxious, worried, and that may affect the welfare of a child. For example, we are concerned, we have no cases of this whatsoever, but we are concerned that perhaps some birth mother may be very worried and she decides to go for an abortion, or Australians become anxious as well and frightened and decide to go to Australia or not to come here to claim the baby, in which case the Thai birth mother and the Thai government ultimately left with the responsibility of a baby that was supposed to go to Australia.
Have you put framework of how long this transitional agreement should be pursued on? What's the framework of it?
Well, my expectation is, and I'm sure it's everybody's expectation, is now that the Thai government has said that they no longer intend to allow commercial surrogacy and that there will be a law banning commercial surrogacy, and given all the publicity that there's been around this issue, that I suspect the practice has stopped already. I expect a few weeks ago. So what we're dealing with is just those people who had a baby born just in the last few weeks, or who have, let's say, a baby in the making. You know, that the Thai woman is already carrying the embryo, and the baby will eventually come. So they're the people who we are concerned about.
I see many articles raising concern of surrogacy couples or Australian couples who come to Thailand and now been struck because they cannot take baby out.
Yes, there are a growing number of cases. The way the system used to work, as I understand it, broadly, was there were certain documents that you would expect of identity that were required. The ID card of the mother who gave birth to the child.
Birth mother.
The passports of the Australians, the parents. The birth certificate of the baby. Those are obvious documents that are required. Previously, I understand, there was also a requirement for some sort of letter from the district office. And when those requirements were in place, the process was quite quick, and they were able to take the children to Australia quite quickly. Since the attention on this case, people have also looked and said, oh, there was probably a requirement also to have a court order, to go to the courts and get a court order.
Is it the extra measure to have a court order?
Well, I think technically, my understanding from talking to Thai officials is that technically there was always possibly a requirement to have a court order, but it wasn't insisted upon. It was one of those things which may have been an option, but it wasn't firmly insisted upon. So at the airports, you didn't have to show a court order. I think with all the spotlight now shining on this issue, people have looked at all the number of things that might be needed and have focused on that court order. If a court order is going to be required, there's a concern that because the courts are so busy in your country and in ours, courts everywhere seem to be very busy and have a big backlog, it can take time. And there are reports that this may take maybe 3 or 6 months.
Since the story has been exposed, has the Australian embassy in Thailand issued any passport for surrogate baby to go out of Thailand, to leave Thailand?
Yes, we do continue to issue the passports because for us it's not an issue. Our issue is to establish the citizenship of the baby. Under Australian law, a baby is entitled to Australian citizenship if it is a blood relative, if it is the descendant of an Australian.
That is proved by DNA.
And that's proved by DNA. What happens in our system is an Australian comes to the embassy and says, this is my baby, which has been born here in Thailand through surrogacy. We ask the person concerned to do a DNA test. Obviously we have DNA from the baby as well. We get the results of that test. If the test confirms that yes, this is the baby of an Australian, we then give that baby Australian citizenship. Once a baby or an adult, anyone has Australian citizenship, they can then apply for an Australian passport. So they're the two processes that the embassy gets involved in.
But in Australia, you do not allow surrogacy to happen.
That's right. Because our concern under Australian law is just, is this child an Australian citizen according to our law? And if one of their parents is an Australian citizen, by Australian law, they are entitled themselves to Australian citizenship, whether they're in Australia, in Thailand, or any country in the world. That's how we determine citizenship.
With the case of baby gammy, do you have to review or what's the social reaction in Australia?
No, I don't think there's any need for that. This doesn't sort of cause us any concerns about our law regarding citizenship or passports. Our concern is simply about the welfare of the children and the welfare of the commissioning Australian parents and of the birth mother, because these people, through no choice of their own, simply because the circumstances have changed, and changed for very, very understandable reasons, they find themselves caught in a temporary trap, because it's only temporary, because it's just how do we help them through this transition period. Once you have in place a law which bans commercial surrogacy, and once these people in transition have been through the processes that are required and then can go to Australia, the issue is not going to arise anymore. The issue has gone away.
Overall, how do you think of surrogacy? What's the social reaction toward commercial surrogacy in Australia?
There's always been a debate around the issue. Some people fully understand why surrogacy, including commercial surrogacy, should be an option. Other people who have strong views the other way. There's understandably been a lot of focus here around, an understandable focus, around the very disturbing case relating to baby gammy and the very disturbing case relating to the Japanese gentleman. But we need to keep in mind that the people who are taking advantage of the opportunity of commercial surrogacy are overwhelmingly good, decent people. They are very nice, good people. For example, I know of somebody whose daughter had cervical cancer, and she had to have a big operation, which meant she could no longer have children. But before she had that operation, she was able to have some of her eggs removed. Those eggs have been now, with her husband's sperm, implanted into, as an embryo, into a surrogate baby. They're expecting a baby. These are good people who, if it wasn't for this surrogacy option, wouldn't have been able to have their own child.
Loopholes seem to be happening with trafficking or the issue of baby born out of surrogacy, maybe lure into human trafficking process.
Yeah, there's an understandable concern. We should always be concerned about human trafficking in children. But as far as I know, while people have expressed those concerns, and while we should be aware of those risks, I'm not yet aware of anyone being able to show that surrogacy has been used here in Thailand for human trafficking.
Have you got information of the latest situation by parents of baby gammy in Thailand? Should they be coming back to Thailand to get baby gammy to Australia, or what's the process that should help them?
I don't know the full circumstances, to be frank. I know most of what I know from the media, and that is that there has been a range of comments made, statements made by people involved, and there's conflicting reports about what really happened. I don't know where the truth lies in all of that, but we all agree it is a very disturbing case. And I think we all agree also that baby gammy's mother has shown a very, very commendable attitude and approach towards this baby. She was never expecting to have responsibility for this baby. She has taken on that responsibility, and I think deserves the highest praise for the way that she's conducted herself. The case was, as we know, so disturbing that as soon as it became apparent, many people in Australia and I think in other places have donated money, and that's being held very carefully in trust by a charity, and they are going to make sure that money is used to ensure that baby gametes' health issues are dealt with and baby gamete gets good care and a good education. But it was a very disturbing case, and we understand fully why that case and why the subsequent case that was uncovered about the Japanese gentleman has led to people focusing on commercial surrogacy, and the Thai government has made a decision to bring forward that draft legislation, I think, which has been in existence for some years, to ban commercial surrogacy in Thailand.
Overall, how do you think Australia society has got lesson learned from this issue of surrogacy?
I think it's really what it's done. It's for all of us, whether it's Australia or anywhere else. It's illustrated for us the complexities around this issue of surrogacy. It's highlighted why in many societies people feel uncomfortable with the idea of commercial surrogacy, and why in many of those societies, including Australian society and now in Thai society, governments have decided that on balance that we will ban commercial surrogacy. But I think it's also highlighted for us, and we shouldn't forget this, that there are some, as I said before, a lot of the people seeking a baby through commercial surrogacy are good, honest, decent people, and their inability to have a baby other than through surrogacy is something I think we all feel about as well.
Do you plan to raise this issue to the new government of Thailand?
I'm sure whenever I meet with the new government of Thailand, the issue will come up naturally. It has such a profile at the moment, and if I don't raise it with the Thai government, I expect the Thai government will raise it with me.
Talking about diplomatic relations between Australia and Thailand, what's the latest situation?
We understood fully, as we said, right from the time the political disturbances happened here in Thailand late last year, that Thailand is dealing with some very complex political challenges, and that in dealing with those challenges, Thailand has Australia's friendship, Australia's goodwill and Australia's support. And at various stages we expressed that. When the army decided to have a coup, we expressed our concern that a decision had been made that was where the solution was to lie, and we put in place some measures at the time. But that having happened,
what's the measure that you put on Thailand?
So there was some postponement in some military activity was the main measure. But that having happened, we now, because of the deep friendship between the peoples of the two countries, our understanding that Thailand was dealing with difficult issues, there's no easy answers to these issues. So we realised patience is needed. We, on a day-to-day basis, have been engaging with the Thai government across a broad spectrum, and will continue to do so. And as we said right at the outset, Thailand has our goodwill and our support, and we hope that soon, as is set out in the roadmap, there will be an election in Thailand which reflects the will of the Thai people, and Thailand certainly has Australia's support and friendship as it deals with these issues. We continue to have engagement with the Thai military. There are, I'm not sure what the latest number is, but there are about 27 or 28 Thai military officers training in Australia. That training continued. We do a lot of bilateral work with the Thai military and with other Thai agencies as well.
What about the area of trade relations or diplomatic relations? Everything remain the same?
Yeah, trade relations are very strong. Since our bilateral free trade agreement came into force in January 2005, trade between our two countries has more than doubled. Thailand is now our 6th largest trading partner, and we are your 8th largest trading partner. So trade is a very important and very strong part of our relationship. And we also engage with Thailand diplomatically on bilateral issues regional and on global issues as well.
But talking about Australia, you seem to be on the same side of United States, European Union, and the UK in taking quite harsh statement on Thailand.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure it's a harsh statement. See, what struck me is a lot of Thais after the coup said to me when they saw the Australian statement, doesn't Australia understand Thailand's history, Thailand's circumstances? And that's a fair enough question to ask. But equally, Australia has a history, and Australia has circumstances too. And our history, our circumstances, our view of the world, which is well known, means that when a country like Thailand, which has had strong record of democracy over quite a period, decides to have a coup, we feel bound to express an opinion because of our history, our view. Each of our countries has its own history, its own worldview, and at times we're not going to see eye to eye. But when you have really substantial relationships, as Thailand and Australia have, and when you have a lot of warmth in that relationship, we quickly find ways to make sure that these differences that we will have don't get in the way of day-to-day cooperation between countries who are neighbours. We are neighbours, and therefore we have to continue to get along with each other, and we do.
Which mean neighbors who are on different page.
That's okay. Occasionally we're on a different page on some issues. But if you're a good neighbour, you work through those issues. And that's what we've been doing, and I think we've been doing it quite successfully. Without either side having to concede that their principles were wrong. We have different approaches, different principles. Occasionally they sort of rub up against each other. But they're not sort of, the sky doesn't fall in. There's so much else that happens in our relationship. There's so much goodwill at the official level and at the people-to-people level. Australians still love to come here. Last year, 940,000 Australians visited Thailand. I mean, our population is only 23 million. That's the equivalent of 1 in 25 Australians choosing to come to Thailand.
Now we've got Prime Minister, General Prayut has become new Prime Minister of Thailand. How do you see the situation?
Well, I don't think General Prayut's becoming the Prime Minister of Thailand has come as a surprise. It was widely expected. So what I keep coming back to is the roadmap that the General has announced shortly after the coup. And that roadmap, the critical thing about the roadmap, I think, is that at the end of the process, the different stages, General Prayut has made it quite clear there will be an election and Thailand will return to an elected government. Anybody who was closely observing the situation here in Thailand over the last 6 to 8 months had to concede that there were some big problems, there were big issues, they were very, very hard to solve. Whether the best way to try to solve them involved a coup or not, there's clearly going to be a difference of opinion. But that's history. It's happened.
So now you look for the future?
You must look to the future. And you look at the roadmap and you look and see there's going to be a reform council, there's going to be a constitutional drafting committee, and there's going to be an election. I'm very confident that the reform council will be able to help to find new ways that work better to deal with some of those difficult problems, and the Constitutional Drafting Committee will also work very hard to come up with a new constitution which is going to help Thailand to overcome the problems that emerged over the last year or so and put in place arrangements that lessen the risk that will happen again.
So far, how do you see performance of General Prayut of military junta in handling the situation?
Well, again, it's really not my job to make a report card on the Thai government, certainly not publicly. I think though that it's fair to say that like anybody else living here in Thailand, people are pleased that the temperature has been lowered, that there is not the conflict and periods of violence that there were before, and we live in hope that with the steps that General Prayut has taken so far and the steps that have been foreshadowed with the Reform Council and the Constitutional Drafting Committee, that there will be an election in which everyone agrees willingly to participate, and Thailand then moves to having an elected government again.
You will evaluate the situation, the relations between two countries after Thailand having next election.
As a democracy, Australia puts a high value on elections, especially in countries like Thailand, which have had elections in the past and formed governments through elections in the past. There's a strong sense, I think, amongst Australians as they look at a country like Thailand, a country with which for which we have so much regard and so much goodwill, that we look forward to the day when you can again have an elected government. That said, we know that the previous system was unable to accommodate all the internal contradictions and challenges that emerged, and that you're now looking for a new way. And we hope that that can be found, and we certainly look forward to seeing the work of the Reform Council, as I'm sure the Thai government, the Thai people are as well, the work of the Reform Council, the work of the Constitutional Drafting Committee, so that the roadmap can be fulfilled.
Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me. ขอบ
My
คุณค่ะ
pleasure. ขอบคุณครับ
เสียงสะท้อนนะคะจากเอกอัครราชทูตเจมส์ไวส์ค่ะท่านทูตออสเตรเลียประจำประเทศไทยนะคะถึงความสัมพันธ์ระหว่างไทยและออสเตรเลียรวมถึงปัญหาที่เกิดขึ้นนะคะกรณีอุ้มบุญกับความพยายามผลักดันของสถานทูตออสเตรเลียประจำประเทศไทยเพื่อที่จะแก้ปัญหาเร่งให้คู่สามีภรรยาที่ยังรอลูกอุ้มบุญอยู่ในประเทศไทยกลับประเทศออสเตรเลียโดยสวัสดิภาพค่ะด้วยความห่วงใยต่อเด็กอุ้มบุญที่กำลังจะเกิดขึ้นค่ะและทั้งหมดคือตอบโจทย์และที่นี่ไทย PBS สำหรับคืนนี้ค่ะดิฉันณัฐฐา โกมลวาทินสวัสดีค่ะ